The warning signs your body sends after 60 and why most people miss them. You reach for the jar on the top shelf, and for half a second, your shoulder just doesn't cooperate. You brush it off, or you stand up too fast from the couch and the room tilts for a moment before it settles. Most people wave that off too. Here's the thing, your body has been sending you messages like this for years, and most of us have gotten really good at ignoring them. I see this constantly in practice. Someone comes in for something unrelated, and almost as an afterthought, they'll mention, "Oh, and my hands have been a little numb in the morning," but that's probably nothing. Sometimes it is nothing, but sometimes it's the one detail that actually matters most, and it's easy to miss because it doesn't hurt. Anyway, that's really what this video is about, the signals that don't scream for attention, the ones that whisper instead. Let's get into what they actually mean. Let's start with the misconception that trips almost everyone up, the belief that your body will tell you loudly when something's wrong. Pain, in most people's minds, is the alarm system. No pain, no problem. After 60, that's often backwards. A lot of the processes that used to hurt enough to get your attention now show up as something quieter instead: stiffness, fatigue, a slight change in how something feels rather than a spike of pain. Doctors sometimes call this a shift in symptom presentation, and honestly, that's a fancy way of saying the volume knob on your body's warning system gets turned down right when you need it turned up. Take swelling in the ankles. Most people assume that's from standing too long or shoes that fit a little tight. Sometimes that's exactly it. But when it shows up in both ankles at the end of the day, consistently, week after week, that's edema, that's just fluid building up in the tissue, and it's worth mentioning to your doctor because it can be an early sign of how your heart is handling fluid. So what does your body actually tell you and how do you catch it? Let's go through the signals worth paying real attention to. Balance is one of the first things to change quietly. You might notice you're holding the railing on stairs when you didn't used to, or that turning around quickly feels a little less stable than it did a few years back. A lot of people tell me they've had a near miss. Nothing happened, but it could have. Recognize that one? That near miss is data. It's your inner ear and your muscles telling you the coordination system is working a little harder than it used to. Grip strength sneaks by unnoticed too. Struggling to open a jar, noticing your handwriting has gotten smaller and shakier, these seem like small annoyances, but grip strength is actually one of the more studied predictors doctors use to get a general sense of overall muscle health. Not about vanity, it's a window into what's happening throughout your whole muscular system. Sleep changes too, and not just trouble falling asleep, waking up multiple times a night for reasons you can't quite explain. Something I hear often is, "I just don't sleep like I used to. I figured that's normal." Some of that is normal, but frequent nighttime waking can also point to changes in breathing patterns, bladder function, or even how your body regulates blood sugar overnight. Then there's the skin, bruising more easily, cuts taking longer to heal than they used to. People chalk this up to thin skin, and structurally, that's part of it. But it can also reflect how well blood is circulating and how your body manages inflammation and repair. And one more worth watching: mild shortness of breath doing things that never used to wind you. Carrying groceries up the same stairs you've climbed for 20 years, and now you're a little more out of breath than expected. Easy to blame on being out of shape. Sometimes it is, but it's also one of the more reliable early signals your cardiovascular and respiratory systems give you. Research from the CDC and groups like the American Geriatric Society points to something worth understanding. As we age, chronic conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and early kidney changes tend to develop gradually rather than announce themselves. The Cleveland Clinic has noted that early intervention, even something as simple as catching elevated blood pressure a year or two sooner, can meaningfully change the long-term outcome. It's not about scaring you into more doctor visits. It's about understanding that your body's early warning system after 60 tends to whisper information rather than shout it. I used to believe most people just needed better information to catch these signals early. I was wrong about that, actually. Most people I talk to already know, on some level, that something's changed. What they're missing isn't information. It's permission to take it seriously instead of explaining it away. So what can you actually do with all of this? The first thing worth doing is keeping a simple, honest log, not a spreadsheet, just a note on your phone or a notepad by the bed. When something feels off, write down what it was and when. Patterns matter more than single incidents, and most of us have terrible memories for exactly when something started. Beyond that, get your grip strength and balance checked at your next physical, even if nothing feels wrong. Ask specifically. A lot of routine checkups don't include it unless you request it. Takes a couple of minutes, gives you a baseline to compare against down the road. And if you've noticed swelling, shortness of breath, or unusual fatigue, don't wait for it to get dramatically worse before mentioning it. A 5-minute conversation at your next appointment. Hey, I've noticed this over the last few weeks. Costs you nothing and can catch something early when it's far easier to manage. Another thing that actually makes a difference, pay attention to symmetry. One swollen ankle and one normal one is a different conversation than both swelling evenly. One hand going numb versus general stiffness in both. These details feel small, but they help a doctor figure out what's going on much faster. Now, a few mistakes I see people make constantly. One thing that comes up a lot is people stopping a medication on their own because they feel fine and figure they don't need it anymore. That's genuinely risky, especially with blood pressure medication, where feeling fine is often the result of the medication working, not a sign you no longer need it. The other thing I want to mention is waiting for the big symptom before acting. People will ignore 6 months of mild fatigue and dismiss it, but the day they have chest pain, they're in the emergency room within the hour. Both deserve attention, just at different levels of urgency. The mild ongoing stuff is actually the easier one to act on early when you still have options. And this one I feel pretty strongly about, comparing yourself to how you felt at 40 instead of comparing yourself to how you felt 6 months ago. Aging changes the baseline. What matters isn't matching your younger self, it's noticing when something shifts from your own recent normal. Before you go, just a quick recap of what actually matters here. Your body after 60 tends to whisper instead of shout. Balance, grip strength, sleep, skin healing, mild breathlessness, that's where the whispers show up. And the people who do best are the ones who write it down and mention it early instead of waiting. Everything in this video is for educational purposes only. Always consult your doctor or healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. If this was helpful, give it a thumbs up, drop a comment with your question, and subscribe if you want more like this.